What's up, everybody? Justin Monorail here with some all new content. Now, this is something that I've been thinking about starting for a while, and I feel like I got the nudge I needed to get started. Over the course of the last couple of years, we've been doing this podcast, the Monday Morning Monorail podcast. I've had several people ask me about the equipment that we use, and I have no problem sharing that information. It's usually like a one-off basis, like what kind of mics do you use? Are you using a digital recorder? That sort of thing. And so I've connected with those people one-on-one and shared it. But just this week, I got a question on Twitter about the equipment setup that we use, and very kind compliments saying that we always sound good and kind of wondering how we achieve the sound. So I thought, what better opportunity to start my little video journal than giving you all a rundown of the equipment. Now, I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of different ways you could set up to record a podcast. When I first started doing podcasts, I guess 4 years ago now, I was recording just into my phone. I would just, use whatever digital recorder app I had. I'd hit record, and we would just sit it down on a table, and we would have our conversation. As time went on, we put some money into it. Not a lot of money, because as you're going to see, I don't have like top of the line, most expensive name brand equipment. But I acquired some pieces. We put some things together. It was a mic here, a mic there. And, I started out with the things that I felt like were most important, and I've kind of built out from there. But again, there's a lot of different ways you can achieve a podcast recording setup. Mine is certainly not the only way, but here's what I do, and if you've got any thoughts, feedback, questions, or anything else, you let me know after you watch the video, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. So the first thing that I wanted to share was the most expensive piece of equipment that I bought, and probably the most important, which was the soundboard. Now, I knew I needed a soundboard that could handle multiple channels, so I went with this 4-channel. Well, it's actually only got 4 mic channels, but then there's several other channels if you have instrument cables that go in here, and then there's even RCA connections as well. But I needed 4 microphone channels since we have 4 podcasters here, and it does have the phantom power if you need it for like a condenser mic, and so that worked well because that's what we're using. So this is a Behringer Xenix 1202 FX. It has a little digital effects processor built into the soundboard, which is kind of fun to play with. I don't really use it for the podcast, but it entertains the chillins sometimes. So, and it does. It's got EQ built into the channels, as you can see. It's a pretty good board. It does well for me. And, most people, you don't have 4 people sitting around a table, when you're podcasting. It might just be a couple. So you don't necessarily need 4 phantom power like mic connections, but that's what we needed. So I did look it up to try to see how much it was if you were to try to acquire this piece of equipment today. And I found, looks like it's from Sweetwater. I don't know what the website is. I just did a Google search, used the shopping function, and it says it's $138.99, but here it is right here if you wanted to try to acquire that for yourself. That's the Behringer Xenix 1202 FX board. Now, soundboards come in all shapes and sizes. You can get as many channels as you need, several or very few. And if you don't need one of these because you might just be plugging one mic into your computer, you're going to save yourself some money because that tends to be the most expensive piece of equipment that you're going to acquire. The other thing that I needed, and it was because at the time I figured I would be doing remote recording, and I also wanted to be able to have like a backup recorder so I'm not just recording into my computer all the time. I needed a digital recorder. So I went with this one, which is the Tascam DR05. And this is the second most expensive piece of equipment that I got, but it's very functional. It works very well. You can see it's actually got 2 microphones built into it, so it can capture stereo sound. And I've used this to do in-park live recording without attaching like an external mic. I can just use these mics and hit record, and it's really good. It's pretty sensitive. It picks up a lot of ambient sound, whatever the area music might be if we're in the parks. And I've been very happy with it. It's been stable. I can listen back to it. It does have an output so you can plug headphones into it. And I use it through USB connection. I connect it to my computer, load my audio files in there, and then I do my podcast editing. Now it just records stereo tracks. It's not like I can multi-track record into the digital recorder, but I'm not trying to make albums, a record with a band or anything like that. So I don't necessarily need the multi-track editing. But it works well, very good. And I don't know what the storage is on it. I've actually got an SD card installed, so I guess that's probably what the storage is. Let's just take a look here. So, it's got the micro SD, and I've got a 32 gigabyte SD card plugged in there. Plenty of space. I mean, I tend to delete the audio files when I'm done with them, but, it can hold quite a bit of audio data. And I did look this one up as well. If you wanted to acquire the Tascam DR05, Googled it, looking at the shopping function, this was $90, and I think that's what I paid for it at the time. So you can find that as well. Pretty easy little Google search to find. Okay, next we'll move on to the microphones. I wanted to find something that, according to like Amazon reviews, Google reviews, captured a good sound, but I didn't want to break the bank, and microphones can be pretty expensive. So I did a lot of research. I found these that seemed to be pretty reasonably priced, and especially since I was going to buy multiples of them, I didn't want to, break the bank. And not only was I buying microphones, I had to buy the mic stands, the mic cables. This package, when I bought the microphones, actually came with the mic stands with, the shock mount, and it actually came with the windscreen as well that came with the microphone. But these are Florian BM800s. You can see that there. This is actually like the front of the mic, so you don't talk into it like this. You actually talk into it like this. And it is a condenser mic. It requires phantom power, which means that you plug it into the soundboard, you hit the phantom power button, and it actually powers the microphone so that it's more sensitive. It would pick up sound if you didn't give it power, but it would be like pretty quiet. So the power makes it a lot more sensitive, picks up a lot more of the sound in the area. So yeah, and it's pretty good about, like, even though it's a condenser, it's somewhat what they would say cardioid, which means it doesn't really pick up behind it. The pickup pattern is kind of like around the front of it, mainly right here, right in front of like that main, pickup right there. So it did come with the windscreen, which goes right over the top of it, makes it look like this. And then came with these mic stands. You just pop this open like this, slide it onto the shock mount, boom, microphone's ready. I had to get some microphone cables. So this is your 3-pin mic cable. You take the female end, you're gonna plug it into the mic like that. That will go into the soundboard like that, and then boom, you're ready to go. So sound coming from me into the soundboard, it's going to go out of the main out. Had to acquire stereo output, so this is stereo instrument cable, and then it goes into a headphone connection, so it'll plug into this. So you just plug that into the mic external in, out of the main out, like that, and boom, basically from that point on, as long as I've got power going here, I've got my volumes up, I've got the digital recorder turned on, then everything is hunky-dory. Now, because we do a lot of recording online, we connect with people on the magical Monday morning monorail video hotline. It's important that the whole family can hear what's coming out of the computer. So again, a couple of things required there. Basically what I do is I've got another one of these cables like this, except it's going to have an instrument cable going into the input channel like this. And I connect the headphone piece into the headphone jack of the computer. So sends it onto the board just like another person with another microphone, right into the board like this. And then what I do is I take that main out that's going into the digital recorder, I run it into my headphone amplifier, which is a Pile headphone amplifier from audio.com, just a 4-channel, that's all I needed. I plug it in here, and then I've got 4 headphone jacks. And the reason that's important is because the soundboard actually only has 1 headphone jack. So if I wanted to hear the people, talking to us from the computer, I could do that by plugging into the headphones here, but nobody else could hear it. So, and I like to listen to the sound coming out of the digital recorder so that I know that I've got good sound coming out of here. So I send that into the headphone amp, and then I split that out to 4 different headphones, and then we can all hear what everybody's saying and interact with the people that are connected via the computer. Now, again, if you were doing like an individual podcast where it's just you're recording with people, maybe, who knows, hundreds of thousands of miles away through the computer, you don't necessarily need all this setup per se. You could just plug your mic, not necessarily these mics. You have to have a different mic that can plug into the computer, but you can plug directly. You can get USB mics, that just plug directly into the computer. And then there are programs, there's, web-based programs that you can use that actually give you multi-track recording. So you can do things like that. They're paid services. There may be some that are free. And then, everybody, you can connect via Skype or whatever it is you may want to use, and just record that way. And then all you need is headphones to plug in the computer. You can hear everybody, and you're all good. So that's a less expensive maybe way to go, but I like to have this set up. It gives us a couple of things. It allows us to be mobile if we want to be, so we don't necessarily have to record tied to a computer. I can take this stuff anywhere, and we could record, out in the field, which has been done once or twice with this setup. But the other thing is, it gives me the backup with the digital recorder. It gives me a lot more flexibility, and I feel like also I've been able to manage background sound quite a bit better without having to deal with the computer. Because I have found that sometimes when I'm dealing with recording into the computer, I get like low-level buzz or hum, and I think it comes from like the power supply. So I avoid that by doing this as well. So one last thing, I guess I didn't share the Pile headphone amp, if you want to know about that. This is $16, $17. Again, Google search, shop for it. You can find it. And that's something you can get as well. So that's the deal. That's the setup. Maybe I'll take a few pictures and share them after we get set up for recording this coming weekend. And you all can see what the full setup looks like once I get it fully assembled. But I appreciate the question. I hope this was interesting and helpful. If you have any more questions, I'm so happy and thrilled to help people. I've got a little bit of a background in audio engineering, so I can answer some questions. And I guess the other thing I didn't mention is I use Audacity, which is a free program to edit the podcast audio. And if you have questions about that, I can help you with that as well. So this has been fun. I hope it's been fun for you. And if you want to hear what the finished product sounds like, you can listen to the Monday Morning Monorail podcast every Monday morning on all of your podcast distributors. Thanks so much. Have a magical week.